okay? Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for inviting us, Ricardo. We're a small team, and I've bolstered the numbers here, so I've lots of my friends and colleagues. So there's Mark and Rasha and Douglas and Mikey. We're all here tonight to have this chat. This is where we work in St Mary's Street, on these two floors, a former shop in St Mary's Street. I want to talk a bit about the role of an architect, which we see changing, obviously, with the changing circumstances, changing economy, support. Because you see the role of an architect in this famous film, the book by Ayn Rand, The Fountainhead, the sort of noble individual holding onto his principles in the face of naysayers who resisting the noble architect. But that image of the architect is perhaps also perhaps rather similar to that of the architect that we see. We thought we may have seen the end of that. And I want to talk a bit about what we're seeing emerging from small practices around the UK, and I'm hoping to tell you a bit about what we're doing in our practice. This is a project called Jellyfish Theatre. It was the winner of the Small Projects Award, the AJ Small Projects Award, which is an initiative where they asked all the neighbours, residents, and businesses to donate doors and chairs and pallets to create a theatre space for plays that were about people sort of surviving a crisis, economic crisis. But before I tell you about what we've been doing, I would like to tell you about where we are, because I think what we do rather comes from the place where we are. Yeah. So what we do, where we are is this former shop unit, and we have lots of space, and we want to use it to optimise our use of the space. So we run a gallery for artists who have an interest in architecture in the city. We also run evening classes open to everybody. We're in the middle of a couple of series at the moment, autumn's quite popular for evening classes, and we have a little group of 8 people working in our front room, and we've been running a summer school this year, this August, which was a great success, and we're going to do more about next year. I'll tell you a bit more about that later on. So we wanted to find an identity for what we do, and it was right there in front of us, really. It was our shop, and thinking of the Victorian architect who designed our street made us think of those the romantic Victorian sense that made us grab the Scots English dictionary to look for the Scots translation of the word shop, and we found that this gave us a name for our organisation that lets us do lots of different things within it. I just want to talk a bit about the theme that we talked to our students about in the summer. We retitled it "The City in Crisis." It was architecture in crisis we discussed, but because it's from this crisis, I wanted to sort of give a positive description of what opportunities may be emerging. But the city, Edinburgh has had to address crises of many different types over many years. This sort of external threat from the hinterland, with defences like the Flodden Wall. It's had dissent within the city. This is an image by James Drummond of the lynching of Porteous, the captain of the city guard, here being dragged off to the gallows, a real event represented in Walter Scott's The Art of Midlothian novel. And we, of course, we may forget that there is a protest going on in the city at the moment here in St Andrew's Square. Quite a contrasting image. The last one makes us feel quite safe enough to have a latte with a protest. Ironically, one of the fenced-off squares that was rather a reaction is fenced-off squares of the new town to the warren of the old town, where dissenters could disperse into the closes. But of course, it's easy to forget, of course, that only 2 or 3 months ago there were riots in many UK cities, what would the response be to riots had they occurred in Scotland? Would there, I imagine there were lots of social policy responses. What would the architectural response be? What will it be in cities like London? And this is a famous image by Cedric Price, which perhaps tells us a little bit about how cities have responded to crises and threats. Cedric Price, very charismatic, provocative thinker, provocateur, and characterised the ancient city with its shell as the wall, containing giving safety to the historic core and the supporting residential areas. And then in peacetime, with unified city governance, the wall is redundant, and with rail infrastructure the city spreads out. The modern or the postmodern city of a sort of distributed, evenly distributed network. And I think Edinburgh, where does Edinburgh fit within this caricature model? And I think the cities work very hard to hold on to stay as a fried egg and not get scrambled. And it's perhaps done so by, instead of having physical boundaries, it's replaced them with virtual legislative boundaries, the boundaries like the World Heritage Trust and the Green Belt contain the city. And in that sense, they are constraints on an architect, and legislative boundaries just as much as physical ones are. And they work as a sort of backstop, really, for a firm like ours, rather than any sort of inspiration, of course. But actually, it's they remind us of the value of the buildings that we are working with. And so, as a link to show you one or two of our projects where we've responded to the characteristics of the buildings in which we were discussing in a positive way. Take an area like aspirational, affluent suburbs of Edinburgh, where thankfully the last 10 years we've had nice commissions and nice conversations about architecture. Yet you take an Edinburgh villa, and quite quickly you're aware of the mismatch between the original organisation of the house and the way a modern family wants to live. Now, in this case, I'm going to show you had a first floor drawing room, quite remote from the ground floor kitchen at the rear, and it had quite a very nice extension and work done by my previous boss, Richard, on the ground floor, and sorted out all the ground floor to a lovely living floor, and the first floor, where the living room, the drawing room was mostly for bedrooms. And so the drawing room was going to get relegated to the status of a guest bedroom, but it still had the piano.